Just F It. Hi, I'm Romy, an identity coach helping others who struggle with their sexual identity and families of queer youth find their path of understanding and acceptance.
And I'm Carla, a mom empowerment coach empowering moms to own their new identities and motherhood journeys.
And together we are the Effing Madres. We are here to invite you guys into stories of some inspiring madres
who have changed their lives through an F It moment. So here we go. Just F It.
Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. But it's Monday, and we are the Effing Madres. And yeah, Carla, who are we?
Well, I was going to say, and we're back because this is the first episode from our season 3 break. This is now season 4. Oh my goodness.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously we need to take a break because we just do. And it allows for us to like catch up on things as well and have some recordings in the bank so that we don't have to like always be stressing about stuff. So, you know,
and just refresh. Like, I think it's good. I think those season breaks for anyone and anything are like, they're good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Everyone needs to take a break or a step back sometimes just to like, you know, come back renewed. But anyway, we are the Effing Madres. I'm Carla. This is Romy. We're two friends, two best friends, two girl moms, two Latinas. And we said F it over 2 years ago. And this is the culmination of that F it moment. And we thought it would be a super interesting and hopefully motivating community to create for moms, to support moms through these big F it moments, those big moments that you say, like not a careless F it, a very fully, like there's an intention behind it, a need a change in your life. You can't keep doing what you were doing. It's not serving you or your family anymore. You say F it and you do whatever you need to do to change that. And we've talked to so many incredible madres on this podcast sharing their F it moments. And it's been such a myriad of different types of F it moments. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they served them well because any change, whether it might feel like it's like you're going to die at some point sometimes, it's worth it because all these women, at least at the other side, were so much more at peace and happy, and it just served them well. So they're messy and they're hard and they're up and down, but they're so worth it. And we are still in ours, but we've had our ups and downs and many other F it moments since then. And so
yeah, I think the biggest thing is like don't look at us as being the F it madres in terms of fuck it, we just don't care. It's more like fuck it, we care enough. You know, we care enough.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everything you said. And yes, we have a new mom on today, and she is a mother that's here in Austin, Texas, where I live. She is a friend of Chelsea, who we also had on our podcast in the last season. She referred her to me. I actually ran into her at the grocery store randomly. That's how we like even met, through being social media, like followers of each other. And I was like, oh, I know you. You know me. Yes. Like, okay. And I was like, I got to get you on the show, I got to get you on the podcast. And she was like, yeah. So she's really big about putting herself out there. I know she's sober as well. She runs a running team here in Austin that's like a sober running team in the morning. And she's definitely a loud, vocal mom. And so I'm excited to hear her F it moment. I don't know exactly what it is, so we'll just jump in and kind of visit that with her. But I know she probably is another mom that's had many. Yeah. And we'll choose a significant one to share on here. As I think a lot of times when we ask a mom, like, what's your F it moment? They're like, well, I've had so many. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear what that F it moment was. Okay. Hold on. We'll bring her in right now.
Okay, everybody, we are here. We have Ash, Ashley, Ash. It could be either one. I'm liking Ash. I feel like it's really cool. So
yeah, it is really cool.
So I'm going to call you Ash this morning. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time. We are going to just jump right in.
Let's go. Okay. I'm ready.
So the first question we ask is, what brought about this mental shift that made you say F it that you're going to share with us today?
What brought upon the mental shift? I had reached, it was actually as a mother, my kids were already starting to move out of the house, and I was going to be an empty nester. And as when I newly became a mother, I had to recognize the relationship with my own mother was something that like I couldn't have the same dynamics with her anymore. And I'd made a decision in that moment when my baby was 3 weeks to shift that dynamic and tell her this won't be the same way. And so for 20 years, 19 years of parenting, my mom didn't really have a relationship with my children. And I knew in order for me to heal and grow and to also be a better parent for my mom, to show them a different example, or to my kids, that I would have to go back and face her in my past. And for me, that epic moment was I've got to now go into I not like F at myself as a mother, but I've been so responsible for my children. And as a mother, completely emotionally available to them and every need that they've ever had, that I hadn't been able to take care of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually kind of like maybe a counterintuitive effort moment. It was, I need to go save myself. I have to go back to the eye of the storm. I have to face all of this stuff so I can really be the mother that you're going to continue to need me to be.
Yes. I'm going to speak on this really quick. I just like that rings so true. I'm going through so much of that now. My daughter is 8, and I'm noticing as she gets older, the relationship with my mother and my parents has come up so much, and the boundaries and the healing, and in order to really show up for them, if you don't go back and address that stuff, it's messy. No one talks about this. I'm really glad that you're bringing this up, because no one really talks about this part of the journey.
Right. Yeah, we have so much unresolved wounding and trauma and healing to do from my childhood. And I'm so grateful for the amount of content that is coming out that's been coming out over the last probably 5 to 10 years around that. But I had zero awareness that I had a traumatic upbringing, that I had wounding, that I needed to heal. I had my first child when I was 20, and it was just off to the races. And off to the races meant like, your life is not about you. Like you're a mother and you show up for your children, and their father ended up passing away shortly after we got divorced. I was like, well, now you're really just the mother and you really have to show up. And it was like 0 to 60. And I had no idea that I was parenting from trauma, and from my own childhood trauma, and then the trauma as it was happening, and just was compounding like at a rate that I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, no wonder like the smallest thing might go wrong in the day, and it was just like a fuse was going to blow. And which is just not you're in survival mode, frankly, and you're stressed out all the time, and you don't feel like you're empowered to stop and say like, I need to tend to me first. Even though we talk a lot about it, you don't feel empowered to do it, and you don't have the tools necessarily, and it doesn't instinctively feel like the right thing, because as mothers, I think there is also this wiring of like, no, I've got to protect them. Right. And so you're just hyper focused on being available to your kids. And it really broke me down the closer I got to the closer we got to them moving out, actually, was when I was just like, oh, wow, what has happened? Like, what is happening? Because I had more time in my life to see what I was feeling and how I was showing up, because they were starting to, they were more activities with kids, moving out, what have you. And you're just like, oh, all this extra space and time. And so that epic moment was like, I'm going to really face my own shit, my own pain, and show them what it's like to really sit and work through these things and forgive. Like face it, feel it, and I don't mean forgive like, no, it's fine. Like, I mean truly forgive and let go. And that's been the biggest epic moment for me.
It sounds, let me see if I have this right, but did you have a very tumultuous relationship with your mother where she was just not emotionally available, or
Yeah.
is that the type of relationship you had?
Well, so my mom, my mom struggled with addiction and substance abuse and mental illness. And during those years, the early 80s, I was born in 80s. So there was also then at that time, it was just like, she needs to get it together. She just needs to get a job and figure, grow up, Patty, was kind of like a lot of what I heard also while I was growing up. And as time went on, it became like not clear, but just like, whoa, my mom would be home and it would be okay for a few months. And then eventually, like, she would just go out and then maybe not come back for 2 years. And it was really unfortunate and sad to not have the understanding and awareness of what was happening to her over those years. She would have some good years, but most of them were really tragic. And I'm grateful that I did go back into her life when I did, and because she ended up passing away shortly after. Like, I had seen her, it all happened within like 6 months, but it was, now I look back and I have so much compassion for her. Whereas for a very long time, it was like, how could you have done that to me? How could you leave me? Why would you want to party more? You know, and there was always that narrative from the family members, and like, no one understood how sick she was.
I love that you said that, Ash, because I've come from parents. I'm careful of what I say on here with
Yeah.
addictions, right? And I'm not in a place yet to call out, but I struggle with that, right? And so, as you know, I know we both are sober.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink because of what I've seen, right? I don't
Yeah.
drink because of that relationship that I experienced with my parents, right? I don't want to give that to my child. So it's a big fight for me for many reasons, right? The sobriety part of it, the mental health part of it, but I think like you expressing just going through these losses and these experiences, and I've also lost parents and gone through it, but I think the one thing you said that really hits home is that like when you're growing up with all this kind of stuff, you hold a lot of anger. There's a lot of victim to like
Mm-hmm.
these are our parents in our life, but then something happens when we get older and we are parents where we're like, I have empathy for you. You're like not well, or, you know, like you're a human being, or like sometimes it becomes more, I don't know for you, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, it became, I can look at you as a woman and a human being, and I can separate it at times from being just my parent who may have failed me.
Yeah. You know, I'll speak to two parts of that. Both have been very humbling for me. One is being a parent,
Mm-hmm.
as of young adults now. It is amazing the things that I might say or do that will really hurt and affect them that I never in a million years would have set out to do intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and have absolutely, some decisions I have made have really affected my kids. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been really humbling to just to know and feel in my bones, like the two people I love more than anything would throw myself in front of a bus for. And I cannot believe that I made this decision. For example, didn't seem so conscious at the time, but I had an affair,
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected them over the years with my second husband. If I had known, I never, right? So going to them and humbly, just the most humility, being like, I am so sorry
Yeah.
for the pain that you were feeling, and here's how I'm responsible.
Yeah.
And it's in those moments of parenting that I've been able to look back at my own parents, because I didn't have a great upbringing with my father and my stepmother. And to the point of sensitivity, I really do try to be mindful about that, because my interpretation of that does change over time.
Yeah.
Um, but it was like, it just felt like there was a lot of neglect on both sides, and there wasn't a safe place, and it was a lot of survival, and I was very hurt. I can't even say I was angry, because I wasn't allowed to be angry. And so there was a lot of resentment and a lot of pain. And it's been through my recovery that I've been able to heal that. And now I understand, like, because of actually, let me go back. The other second part was, I understand her addiction now more than ever, because the things that she did to me in my sickness, I actually found myself starting to do, which was really, really wild to experience. Because as a child whose parent would go out, and you know, when you watch your parent go out and they're not coming home, and you're calling the bar and you're begging your parent to come home and they're not, and you're, you know, you're 12 and you're just like, it's scary, it's all the things. And it was like my worst nightmare that happened repeatedly, and I wouldn't see her for years. And at the height of my addiction, I had gone out one night, and this is only, I've never said this publicly, so I'll share it today, because I'm in a different place. But my kids were young, we lived in an apartment building, I went out one night for work, we were drinking, and then I didn't go home until the very late hours. I called my kids, it's like, just go to sleep, I'll be back in a little bit, don't worry. And I was out,
Yeah.
and I was partying. And that next day, my whole fucking life just, can I
A
swear?
100% you can cuss. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Also, my
Yeah.
eyes are like tearing up and they hardly ever do this. I don't know if I'm just coming off my period, but everything you're saying is like hitting every part of my like being right now. So thank
Well,
you.
yeah, of course. And I share it because, our secrets just fester into the shame, right? And we're as only as sick as them. And I know I'm not alone in this, but like the thing that was most traumatic to me that I just hated my whole life having happened to me, I ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing has stopped my life and brought me more conscious into like pain. And like, whoa,
Yeah.
than that moment. So those types of things happening as mothers and parents, fathers, whatever, if you're paying attention, you will find like we're all just repeating these things. And if we're fortunate, we're going to pay attention and try to fix those. But like, I know now that my parents, whatever things they were doing the best they could with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing that for my kids too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel that I've been very humbled by it all.
Yeah.
But that's parenting at its best. And that leads to the effort. Like, I'm going to just face this pain and really feel into it, because if I don't, I get hijacked and I'm gonna fucking walk out my door and do some damage to myself
Yep.
and the world. Yeah.
Yep.
Ugh, man, this conversation is really like hitting home for me too, because I'm in a place where, like, when my daughter was born, I had a lot of compassion for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But now my daughter's 3, and I feel myself going through these moments of intense anger with her because of where I'm at in my life, and like how I was just, she was very emotionally unavailable and very critical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming up so much for me now in the place that I'm at, that I'm like, why did you do that to me? Like, I have that side of me coming up a lot, that I feel so much rage for her.
Yeah.
Then I have but Carla, she had no tools. Like, this is all she knew how to do. It's such a hard battle
Yeah.
to have, because you know that she had no tools. Like, she did the best she could, but the little me is like, I'm so angry at you and I don't want anything to do with you.
Well,
So it's just like,
I think we have to be really careful of that in between space of, I'm really angry and I get that you didn't get it.
Yes.
That in between space requires attention, right? And I think we all just, I talk about this a lot when it comes to like forgiveness or saying I'm sorry. Like, I just wanted everyone to feel good and be comfortable. So like, the sooner we could say we were sorry and we're happy again, the better, so that I'm not feeling, and it's people pleasing and manipulation to a point, but it's also like, everything's fine. We're fine now. Let's go on. And I had to be really, like with my mom, when we started to talk again, she would say things like, I can't believe you're letting me back in your life and that you're willing to talk to me after everything I did to you and your brother. And I would say to her, it's okay. The mother you were made me the mother I am. And I went all in on my kids. And like, had I not had this experience, I wouldn't have done that. And I didn't realize I was placating my own pain. And she knew it. She was like, no, it's not okay. And I'd be like, no, it is. And for years I did that. And it wasn't until one day, after seeing her a few times, I was out on a run. I was actually doing like a 20-mile run in Taos, New Mexico. And towards the end, like this whole time I was training for a marathon, and I just was really emotional on a lot of the runs. And I was like, maybe it's just because it's a long run and shit happens out here. But it was a different kind of emotion that I was experiencing. And on the specific run, I just kept having this feeling, I'm really going to disappoint my daughter. And I was like, because she was going to do this marathon with me. And I thought, that's weird. I don't know how I could like disappoint my daughter. And I realized who it was me as the daughter.
Yeah.
That I was really disappointed.
Yeah.
And I stopped running and I fully followed that feeling. And I let myself out there on this run, just stop and break down and feel the pain of what it was to be her child, and to mourn that, and to be upset. And for the it just like broke open. And after that, I thought, I don't even have to say anything to her. Like, I truly felt free. It was like this cord had been cut, and I just felt this weight. Like, I actually just forgave her. I forgave it all. I let it go. Like, whatever was there is gone. And then she passed away 2 weeks later. And it just, for me, like, solidified this energetic tie that we had of, I really let it go. I really forgave it all. And I saw her as a human, not as a mother. And that was a big one. And I think for a lot of us, that's important. Like,
It is.
we're not just mothers.
No.
Right. And
But also, Ash, like what you're saying is making me think, our mothers had their mothers that they were healing from, right? Like I
yeah,
know my grandmother, I know she did not know what she was doing, right? Like I'm sure all of us know the generational trauma, right? And how hard it was for her, and then my mom's upbringing. I don't know your parents' upbringing, but then they do their best and we come. And like you said, and I love you for being so open and vulnerable and honest on here, because it is important for other women and moms to hear, like where you've done things that have hurt your kids, because then we do those things. We do and we will. And like you stating that like we are human. Yes, we are mothers. Yes, we have this huge responsibility and we are doing our best. We are going to fail. We are going to have to heal through that process. Shit happens, right?
yeah, yeah,
And humanizing mothers is
yeah.
like we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's when we can do that, to that point of like seeing that in between space, when we can really identify it and label it, it doesn't have control over us anymore. It's like that shadow stuff that's really operating our subconscious, right? And we are reacting from it. So like my worst case scenario of the way that I felt as a child, I absolutely ended up recreating because I wasn't able to face it. And when we can allow for that stuff to come out of the shadows, that darkness into the light, like it does diffuse, it does die down, and then we stop repeating it. And that's why I like talking about it too, with like removing the shame from it.
Yes.
So that we can like, yeah, there's just something. That's why like my affair, I'm like, oh my God, I will talk about that ad nauseum, especially if it will help someone understand, like, you're not having an affair because your partner sucks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a good starting place, but there's some deeper shit
Yep.
going on. And let me just tell you how that's going to wreck your life. It's just going to be worse. Like, have the conversation ahead of time if you can, and but we are just like living from these shadow spots. And when we can just be honest with ourselves about like, I am messy, I'm fucked up.
Yep.
I've got some horrible things, and I'm human, and I'm more than a friend and a mother and whatever. And that is so liberating, like for us to be able to just breathe and like
Yes.
let it go a little bit, a little bit.
It sounds like your mother, though, had after you guys reconnected, she had an awareness of what she did. What would be your advice? And I'm asking for myself here,
Yeah.
to be able to have a conversation with someone that will not acknowledge anything she's done. Like how do you get to a place of forgiveness when to them they did very well?
Mm-hmm. Um, when I so I had to remove the label mother from her and daughter from myself to be able to go and talk to her. It couldn't be so personal anymore. It had to be like, this is a woman in the world who has had an experience that, if it was, because the truth is, if it was any other woman in the world, it wouldn't hurt me. I would have so much compassion, understanding. I would want to sit and listen to this person and comfort them, because her story, she was living her own hell. And by this time, she was 60 something, and I haven't gone to a place yet where I've been open. I will say that my mom had addiction and substance abuse issues. I haven't gone into the details because I only recently, at the very end, figured out what it was.
Yeah.
I would say that my mom, she was living in a trailer. She had nothing. She didn't have her teeth, and it was absolutely tragic for me to think this happened to my mother.
Yeah.
And it and that just to see her have enough awareness, because her nervous system was shot, her mind was just enough there for her to know the hell she was living in. And I thought to myself, I don't want any part of this person feeling any more pain.
Yeah.
I can't even like bear it, but it did require me removing the label daughter and mother from each other. And this is a human in the world. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to have compassion and I'm going to listen. And that was hard. I'll be totally honest. I'd have a good few hours. I had my best friend there supporting me. I would leave. I mean, that shit took me out. It took me out. It was,
When you say this stuff, Ash, I think it reminds me of they always have that quote and it always hits my soul, but it's like you forgive somebody who hasn't asked for forgiveness sometimes, or you forgive somebody who isn't sorry, right? Like to be able to do that. It's more about your own letting go and forgiveness sometimes than it is having somebody acknowledge what they did to you.
yeah.
And I've had to do that most of my entire life. I live in a space of I forgive a lot of the pain that has come onto me from people that don't know. If I sat down with my mom and we wrote a book about our childhood together, and I'm sure, Carla, for you probably, I've always said this, those books would sound like we don't even know each other.
Yeah.
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 100%. Yeah.
You would think we were not even in the same home or come from this. They're two different stories, and no one is going to break her version of it or mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's so true. It's hard.
Yeah.
We're so identified with it,
Yeah.
and I was talking to a friend this morning because some of the work that I do is I write a column and I talk about dating relationships and do videos and such. And recently I have I will continue to do my work, of course, but I'm like, I just really want to cook recipes that my mom and other family members that I grew up around that I felt this pain. I just want to cook for them. I just want to cook these things because there's this direct line of like the pain that we experience in our homes that's centered around food for me in some ways that will free us from it. Like because those, and it was just this morning that we were talking about it because my mom had said to me, was it like when she was talking to my daughter and I about this conversation about like all the birthday parties that she threw for me and all the cooking she had done. And I felt like I got lit on fire on the inside. I was like,
what
are you talking about? Like,
I know.
Barely there. I don't know. Like, I just couldn't hear her. I was just on fire. And then there's all these pictures. She insisted I take this photo box and all these pictures, and there were these pictures of slumber parties of like me in junior high and all of us kids on a couch and food everywhere.
Oh.
And when I started to look at those and remember, it hurt in a way that her leaving didn't.
Yeah.
It hurt so bad to remember it was so good when you were there.
Yeah.
It was really clear on how I blocked those things because I wanted more of that and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so I was telling my friends, like, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to cook all this stuff and I'm going to heal my relationships through recipes.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about it.
And I love watching your Instagram page too, because you're always cooking such beautiful things. I want to ask you, just so I can get into the next question though, is what like negative or positive things have happened for you since having this effort moment?
The negative would be I had to take a step back from. I don't want to call it a negative because I believe that it's all serves its purpose, but I had to take a step back from my work to like really throw myself into to grieving and mourning and sitting with these feelings and being really honest with myself because I wasn't drinking at the time, but I didn't have like a strong recovery program either, and I knew if I didn't allow myself to go all into me that I would, like I said, I would end up losing myself. I would end up going back out and just doing shit that's not healthy for me, but probably not drinking, but something else. And so some of the negatives like for that have been, I've gotten, I don't want to call it selfish because I was really selfish before, but self-care and then that's negative for some people in my life because they want more of me, they want more of my time, they want more of my energy, and I've had to really rein it in and put a lot of boundaries around my work and my relationships. And that's sort of, I think it feels like a negative for myself sometimes and others because not everybody understands that and it can be painful. Right. And then the financial part, I literally was like, okay, this is either going to cost me financially or emotionally. And I'm just going to have to just kind of forego on the financial part if I really want to see myself through this. And that feels negative because I love to shop and I love to travel. Right now, like not living that life like I was. I'm like, damn it.
They always say, what's that thing they say? If you're not willing to like basically be poor for a few months to get ahead, then you're never going to get there. Like you've got to be willing to pull back sometimes in life in order to get there.
Yeah. And I had to do that emotionally. So it did affect my financial, but I with money, I'm like, easy come, easy go. I know how to make it. And I'm not too worried, but that was kind of a negative. I was like, oh yeah, this self-focused stuff sure is costing me.
Yeah. I'm curious to know when you finally had this shift, when you finally you said F it and you just came to forgiving your mom and just kind of accepting this. What did it do for you and your kids? How did that shift the dynamic between you and your children?
What was really beautiful during that time was that my kids really started showing up for me
Mm.
and recognizing, I they didn't get to see their grandmother. So when my daughter went back and met her, she saw firsthand, and I thought it was important. I wish my son could have to some degree, but I thought, in some ways, it was more important for my daughter to see this, to
Yeah.
understand her mother and where her mother came from, and what, on a cellular level, we are a third of our mothers and a third of our grandmothers. So my daughter has that as well, and like
Yeah.
know this, and they have a complete. I think they already had a really great respect for me and gratitude for me as a single mom, of what I did and the sacrifices I made. But when now they understand like what I really came from, and what that's looked like and how I was able to show up for them, and they've shown up for me, and that's been really powerful to witness in
Oh,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, and then they've also given me that space too. Like I said, like that, because I was just broken down for a while, and they were calling me and they were checking in. And when they came home, they were helping me cook and being in the kitchen. And it was just really sweet. It was really sweet.
Oh,
Something really beautiful happens in the journey. I know that at least for like my mom and I, and for her mom and her, because it is generational, like you said. And I think that's something really beautiful between like our moms and then our grandmothers, and understanding that and being able to
mhm.
see that. But there's a dance between you're my mother and then removing that title at times. You're
Yeah.
my mom and then removing that. And I know, my mother was 20 when she had me. So I grew
Hmm.
up watching her grow up, as
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
understand. Like I grew up, she was young. I watched
Yeah.
her have to learn about love, marriages, divorce, sexuality, identity, all the stuff. And at times I had to show up for her. And there
Yeah.
would be times I would say, and I'm probably going to say this on here, my mom's going to hear this and say, that's not true. And that's fine, mom. But like the reality is, there was many times that like as the daughter, I was along for her ride and her support as
Yeah.
opposed to the flip.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get that. They're as a 20-year-old, I hear other people talk about having young moms, and I'm like, oh God. Yes, and my kids did
Mhm.
definitely see me grow up. We grew up together,
Yeah.
and that's another part of it where they're like, "You were a baby
Yeah.
when you had us," and I'm like, I
Yes.
look at them as 20 somethings, and I'm like, I can't believe I had a baby at your age. Like that sounds so irresponsible.
Carla and I are figuring out so much about ourselves by becoming mothers. And we were very late mothers, right? Like we did it later on in life, and we're like in our 40s now. And we're just like, I like the amount of opening our wounds and heart and fucking beings that becoming a mother has done for Carla and I know that because we
Mm.
talk about this. I could
Yeah.
not imagine at 20. I could
Yeah,
not. I just at 30, at 20, like I could not imagine, that type of journey.
I joke that like
Yeah.
at 20 something, I was already like 40 something. My
Yeah.
husband at the time was 20 years older than me. I was selling real estate. I was wearing like loafers. I was very much like my pendulum just swung. It completely swung the other direction from who I'd been and what I'd had. And it's funny to look back at the pictures because I see her and I'm like, oh girl, wow,
Yeah.
have so much
Yeah.
compassion for her. But yeah, there was, I have a lot of compassion for my kids too, growing up, like watching me grow up and
Yeah.
seeing that, because it wasn't easy. You are learning who you are. And I hear the advice people give. They're like, I watched young 20 somethings coming out of college to get married. And I'm like, why would we encourage our babies, our young, like you do not have any sense of life experience at the time. Like if I was a mother now, oh my, it'd be a completely different experience, like completely. Because I was
Yes.
like figuring out who I was no less than 17 times throughout those 20 years. And like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like I was always going through something. And unfortunately, also my life was serving me some really big somethings. Like when their dad died, I was 27, and it was just like, what the fuck
Yeah.
just happened?
Yeah.
Like I was so unprepared for something like that. And then you get through it, but it's like, and then I'm also trying to figure out my career and how to support these two kids. And I moved to Texas and I opened up a lingerie store and was selling sex toys in a state that I had no idea had legalized them a year before I got here. Like, it's just like, I was just like doing stuff. like without much consciousness to it, and raising my kids in it. And we look back and it's just like kind of funny because I'm like, wow, I really brought you along for my ride.
Yeah.
You were on my ride for sure. I wasn't that mom.
I think this next question, Carlo, is perfect for this. Like what she was saying in terms of like the negative self-talk, you know?
Oh, and
Yeah.
like how is it that you're able to get through all that negative self-talk that comes up when you have these big life, these big life changes? How did you get through it?
That's only been in the last couple of years that I've learned to talk to myself in a different way. I was really hard on myself. I've had a lot of shame and guilt about motherhood and about a woman in our community, things I've done, having an affair. People have tried, I don't want to say they've tried to cancel me. I don't think we knew what that word didn't exist in 2012, but I've been publicly shamed and blasted on social media. It just happened again recently. And I was like,
Girl, I'm canceled every time I open my mouth. It's fine. And I'm still talking.
yeah, I was like, wow, people just like won't let me live some of these things down. And that's okay. Cause that's more of a reminder for me. Like, is there room here that I need to work on forgiveness? And so in going back to like recognizing these darker parts of myself, these shadow parts, the quote unquote negative bad sides, like that's my humanness and my wholeness. And like, I'm so close to that part of me. And so good with that part of me that the negative talk, when it comes up, I can witness it. But I quickly try to have compassion for it and for myself, we know what we know until we know more. And, but I do have the privilege, I want to say, like that that I do this work that I do, that I was introduced to a lot of self-development work over the last few years. I think also being in the dressing room at my store for years with women and listening to their self-negative talk, it's just like, oh, you hear it and it's like, that's what that sounds like for me. And so I wouldn't do, that's the same. Like I wouldn't do that to talk to another woman that way. Why would I talk to myself that way? But it's really a calling of home for me to just be with those parts of myself and then another part of it too is kind of like to get over myself, get out of my head. Like I could sit and ruminate and self-indulge and be in my negative spirals. If I have the time, which I can make lots of it for myself. So I'm like, I'm not allowed to do that. I've got to call people. I got to ask people how they're doing. I've got to check in on others.
I love that you said that. One of my clients, because I do coaching, so I work with her every week, and she had heard our episode last week where I talked about like my mental breakdown, and she wrote me and she was like, if you ever just like can't do a session, like let me know, because like I don't want to invade on your like your own journey. And I was like, I appreciate that, but like helping others and getting out of my own stuff is actually what helps me. And sitting too long just with all my thoughts is not what helps me. It's getting out there and reminding myself when I speak to somebody else about how to like feel better about themselves, that I'm also healing myself, so as a great reminder and message, like if we create too much time to sit in it.
No, that's part of the reason I can't marathon train sometimes. I'm like, I do not need to be alone with myself for that many
for that long.
Like, that is not productive for anybody.
Right. I'll create a whole new identity and lifestyle by the time that run is over. Like
totally. My future self does not need that much time with her. That's a lot.
Well, I think that's also why, Romy, we've done like what you're doing with your lingerie shops, and you're talking to these women, and like you're in a sense you're helping them feel better about themselves, and that's essentially why we do what we do. It's like we're doing this to help others, because it actually it helps us. It heals us when we help others.
So that's what led me into coaching and having a podcast. When I started it years ago, I'd been in those dressing rooms listening to women. They would tell me their most vulnerable secrets or ask me questions that they couldn't ask their best friends because it was around intimacy and sexuality. And there's so much shame.
Yes.
And I just realized I had become like a safe space, but I didn't have the tools to have that conversation. So I went into coaching to learn how to be there for other people. And then of course, what ended up happening was I started transforming within my own self and doing that work. And I had just gone through like, another breakup at the time because that's what I was doing at the time. But I was able to apply those tools to that experience. And I was like, oh, and seeing myself in that, which is what's led my work to what it is today about relationships and dating and sex. Because it really just keeps coming back to self, like building this relationship with myself. But it did start in those dressing rooms, and like they were helping me so much. Like it's led me on my journey. And it is, to your point, like when you're sitting and listening to your clients, like I've been listening to clients talk about dating now for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I hear myself so much in it, like, and the stuff that I used to do. And it's actually stuff that maybe I was active in, that I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is what I'm doing. And it's helped me move myself through it, So it's like,
like I'm just hearing you, and I'm just like you said, like the secret things that they're telling you and the things that you're hearing, like in the dressing room to this. But when we rip that Band-Aid off and create a safe space, and yes, we're all doing it individually through your work, through our work, but like ultimately, like I'm just like, God, what would it be like if we all could just live in a world where we weren't so hidden with all of these things, and that these conversations were more of a natural, organic.
Yeah. The collective, right? Like,
Yes.
it is energetic. Like if I can heal myself, it will
Yeah.
heal the others around me, which is
Yes.
the important part, right? So back to the motherhood piece of like the effort being like, I have to heal this for us to be healthy moving on. And that, what's great is that my healing healed my mother, and that heals her mother, and then down the road, right? It shifts everything, and then and it influences our friends and the people we work with. So like we are having impact, even if it doesn't feel as direct.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it feels like it needs to be bigger and greater, but I just try to like bring it in to the community, like my community surrounding me. And sometimes that's just my family surrounding me. Like, what am I doing today that will impact them? Am I being in myself? Am I being selfish? Am I holding on to things? Am I resentful? Am I judging? Am I in fear? Or am I open, and am I listening, and am I in service to? And that creates a big shift. And then they go out and they do the thing, and then someone else does the thing, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like leading as an example and setting that tone, right? And that takes us having to do that work for us, for it to like branch out to others. What would your message be to your children and the people listening to your story?
I have a difficult time right now offering advice or direct feedback to people like that, because I don't know what's best for people. And that's something I've been learning through my kids. Like I have so many messages I want to give them. I have so much I want to tell them. And I don't know what your journey is. I don't know what you're supposed to go through to become the best version of yourself. And I've had to learn to sit. I think my message really has been for myself is to not take the first think. If I follow my train of thought, it will be a train wreck. I need to sit back. I need to just witness and watch and let others do what they need to do, right? What's best for them at that moment. I don't know. I have no idea. And that's really hard work, because I have an agenda for the people I love, which is to not see them in pain, because that hurts me. So I think I'm like, no, don't. Like my son is getting ready to embark on a big journey, and I have so many things I want to do and say about that. And sitting is the message. It's just let this person go through
figure it out.
figure it out. And it's hard. And I have to figure out myself in those moments. Like I'm just constantly making U-turns right now, constantly making U-turns.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gotta be tough. I try to envision myself like older Nava coming to me asking advice for things, and me just having to be like, what do you feel like? Like I know that what I'd want to say all the things that I want to say, but I have to be like, what do you feel about it? Like, how do you feel about it? Because I don't want to lead her down my path.
Right.
I want her to figure, I'm here to guide her. Like we're here to guide our children. We're not here to have them live out the lives that we didn't live or that we wanted to live.
Yeah.
And so, but I can only imagine that's going to be a difficult thing, because I'm going to have all that shit going in my head, and I'm like, oh, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it is. I'm in that moment right now where, and maybe this is, if I'm lucky, I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I'm assuming right now, I'm in midlife. Yeah. That's what I'd like to think. But it's a humbling part of midlife. I haven't reached, the wisdom is not there. It's more like looking back and just seeing the life, like the decisions I made and the consequences of those, and just coming to a real grounded understanding of I don't have things figured out, and I'm not going to pretend to. And you guys tell me.
I have to say, like, coming to an end and on this, I think one of the biggest takeaways I just had in that, what you just said that, and I appreciate it, is like, I have an agenda for people and to pull back that agenda. And if anyone is listening and is a parent, right, or has an agenda for someone else's life, I've had people have an agenda for me my whole life, and it's only hurt me, not helped me. And when we stop having, and we do like go back to us, like you did in this effort moment, and you went inward and you went into you and you took care of this as opposed to trying to fix all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's where once this is healed, this can heal. And it's a beautiful reminder and message, and one that like so many of us can connect to. Like, I cannot thank you enough for being so vulnerable and honest and sharing parts of your life and story that are probably hard to share, but are definitely going to help another mom listening.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me on. I love the work you're doing. You're
Oh,
both.
thank you.
This isn't to minimize anything, but you're both so beautiful. It's just like really great.
Oh, like,
Oh yeah, look
when
who's
you said
talking.
you had grown kids, I was like,
Like your
what?
energy and your look, everything. I just love all of it. I love it. The
Oh,
messaging, the vibe, the brand, the faces, all of
Oh, we
it.
needed that. Thank you.
oh, thank you. Yeah, we needed
We needed to
to
hear
hear
that.
that.
We're
We
we're
needed
having
that. Thank you
a
very
heart
much.
wall. So thank you.
Yeah.
Ash, where can everybody find you, your podcast, your work? Share all your things right now so those listening can come to you.
Great. Yeah, I'm on Substack. That's where my column and podcast are. And that's Ashley Kelsch. And it's called Wait What, but it's under my name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm on Instagram, and that's Ash Kelsch. And that's where like a lot of the videos are, and just like little reels and fun little shout outs of a little bit of advice on there. But again, self-centered.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. Those are the only places I can be found right now, I think.
Okay, awesome. So we'll link that up on the podcast description. And then this is where we all say just F it. So we like to have our guests start it off and then we'll follow.
Just F it.
Just F it.
Just F it.